Good morning, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us for our new live stream series, Triumph Black Leaders in Cyber. I'm Delisha Hodo, and I'm an undergraduate student advisor for SANS.edu and the co-chair for SANS+HBCU. And today, I am grateful and thankful to be joined by Dr. Kimberly Young-McLear, who is currently serving as a fellow for the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, also known as CISA. It's very great to meet you, Kim. Thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Yeah, good morning, Delisha. Thank you so much for having me. I'm looking forward to the dialogue. Thank you.
Yes, I'm super excited. And before we get into some of the questions, for those of us joining us, do you mind sharing a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, I am currently detailed to CISA, which is a cybersecurity and infrastructure security agency. It's a cybersecurity component that falls under the Department of Homeland Security. I'm also active duty Coast Guard. I've been in the Coast Guard for about 18 years, and I've been at CISA since summer of 2019. A little bit about my background. I self-proclaimed nerd. I love learning. I love being a student, and I'm also an educator. I've had the opportunity of teaching both at the community college level and also at the four-year college level, specifically at the Coast Guard Academy in New London, Connecticut. I guess beyond that, my family is from Trinidad and Tobago, first generation US, and both of my parents happen to also be retired military. So growing up, I've had the chance to live abroad twice in Asia and Europe, and so I'm just really kind of a lover of appreciating different cultures, different perspectives, and kind of also using that to kind of solve complex problems. So just again, thanks for welcoming me here, and I'm looking forward to the discussion.
No, thank you, and thank you to you and your parents for serving the country as well. It's greatly appreciated. And just to go a little bit back to your background from an academic space, so I saw that you attended Florida A&M. Rattler Nation. I actually know a couple Rattlers, and they're all wonderful leaders. What made you decide on attending FAMU?
At the time, I actually had finished up high school in Germany, and I was born in Florida, and so I knew I had kind of in-state school residence there. And um, to be honest, I really just kind of approach life as you just kind of go for it sometimes. I didn't have anyone in my family that I had knowledge of that I had attended an HBCU or an MSI before. And I had already been living overseas at that point, finishing high school for a couple of years. And so for me, it was really just a matter of intentionally putting myself into a space where I can get back to my roots. I also was that kind of kid that kind of would kind of venture off and find safe space in libraries and just read about all sorts of topics. So for me, I was also keenly aware of a bit of the miseducation, to be honest, that I had received throughout my kind of K through 12 educational journey. And the more that I learned about my own history, our Black ancestry history, and so forth, the more it just really drew to me that I need to kind of literally, re-educate myself on that. So going to Florida A&M for me was a perfect choice. I was already a Florida resident, and so I really just kind of dived in it, and I never looked back. And also just being around, um, you know, folks that shared the same passions. And I just remember it didn't matter what your major was. It didn't even matter what class you were taking. Everyone had a shared understanding about our history and just having pride in who we were. So nothing for me could really kind of replace that atmosphere and that kind of family atmosphere. So definitely wouldn't trade that for the world.
Right, and I can definitely relate to being the first in a family to go to HBCU and to also, like you said, to recognize like, okay, when I was in K through 12, they didn't teach this side of history, or at least not in
Right.
the depths at HBCU, or where everything that you learned from English to history was all engulfed in learning about Black history and our ancestors. So that's really awesome that you were able to find that safe space at FAMU. and how has that led to who you are today? Like, I know you spoke about kind of like what you love most about your time there, which is that environment and being able to learn a little bit more about the history and just the family feeling of HBCU on a college campus. But what else did you love about FAMU, and how did it get you to where you are now?
Oh yeah, I mean everything. I mean it was wonderful. And I studied industrial engineering, so it was the joint FAMU FSU College of Engineering, and so also even just having that appreciation in Tallahassee of friends and classmates attending Florida State, and then their experience is a little bit different, but we kind of all came together in the College of Engineering. But again, for me, I love learning. I love appreciating other perspectives, other cultures, other viewpoints. And I'm a firm believer that even though, across society we may have all these very complicated matters and problems, we can solve it, right? And so I am very fascinated with complexity, but also simplicity at the same time, right? I'm fascinated with, for example, in Tallahassee at FAMU, kind of from an outsider looking in, they would say, oh, you go to that Black school, right? And I would say, well, it's so much more rich than quote unquote the Black school. I'm meeting friends from Nigeria, from Antigua, from France, and it's so multicultural. But I found that folks that weren't familiar with the culture of the campus, they tended to essentially kind of have a one-dimensional view about who we are. And so again, I'm fascinated by why do we make assumptions, right? Why are we afraid to kind of think outside the box? Why are we afraid to maybe challenge that maybe what's right in front of us maybe isn't the full picture? And so that's also part of the reason why, even though I started with industrial engineering, prior to that, I actually was accepted to an art college, and I was probably equally as passionate about art and history. So for me, again, I just love learning, but beyond that, I love applying that knowledge to connect people to solve complex problems that impact people. And for me, FAMU gave me that perfect foundation for that.
And that's wonderful. And it's funny. You said you almost went to art college. What type of art were you considering?
Yeah, well, I love creativity and just I don't know, just imagining, right? Imagination.
Right.
So I throughout probably middle school, high school, I was doing a lot of drafting, AutoCAD, and I kind of exhausted all of the courses that are available to me. And I remember my senior year of high school, my teacher actually said, "We don't have any more courses for you. You've kind of maxed out." And my teacher actually offered to me. He goes, "Well, how would you like to teach all of the teachers in the school district about this new program?" And they wanted to basically transition to computer animation. So he basically was tapping into my drafting skills, and he said, "Can you kind of figure out this thing called computer animation and teach the teachers so that then they can offer that course to other students in our district?" And so that's actually what I did in my senior year, kind of fell in love with it. And it was, again, just kind of this blend of understanding human motion, movements, understanding software, and being able to tell a story. So that resonated with me, and so I was accepted to pursue computer animation. And I kind of had to make some choices on. I'm not saying I regret it, but I ended up pursuing industrial engineering. But I still am driven by my art. I'm still driven by creativity because I think that you really can't solve a problem if you don't know how to imagine, and that takes courage to be able to imagine a solution that maybe doesn't exist yet. So that to my core honestly drives me.
I feel like you just dropped the gem. Like, like just the imagination. Like, you can't solve a problem without being able to imagine the solution. I love that. That is a gem. Like, seriously, that is great. And the funny thing is, so you did computer um, animation, and then you went ahead and majored in industrial engineering. And I think it's really important that you're speaking to individuals who have more than one side to them. So they're not just all,
Absolutely.
one-sided. They're a full holistic individual. And I think it's really important that you're able to speak to them and then say, hey, like you can love art and be creative and imagine things, but also see the technical side of the world as well and merge those two worlds together to make a better world. So I think that's just a really important message that you're sending right now. And I'm really appreciative of that. And I hope that everyone out there is listening and taking down these notes and these gems that you're constantly dropping just by sharing the two passions that you have and how you married the two in a sense. But going from industrial engineering, how did you land in cyber? Was it like a natural progression, or is it kind of
Yeah.
one of those things where it's like, does it mirror the two and kind of gives me the best of both worlds, or is it
Yeah.
just going down another potential path?
Yeah, I have always been driven by leaning into complex problems. I've never run away from those. I've always run toward them. And I think it's exciting, to be honest. And so industrial engineering is really all about processes, kind of process engineering, and the kind of track that I focused on was more human centric aspects of that. And, I remember things like, you would take those skill sets and you may go into an automation plant and say, hey, we need to automate this. And then there's a human component where folks say, hey, does that mean I'm out of a job, right? And so I was always kind of looking at how do we still achieve our objectives, but not necessarily at the cost of human, right? And I always, again, kind of strive towards these complex problems that human beings are at the center of it. And so I loved studying that major, met a lot of great folks. And I was able to apply that skill set in my Coast Guard aspect of my career. And again, I love to learn. So as I'm thinking about these complex problems, I'm thinking, okay, well, what other skill sets do I kind of need to learn to, help solve more problems? And so I ended up pursuing a business degree at Craner Business School at Purdue University in Indiana. So I did that. And I was like, okay, because you have to kind of understand economics, you have to understand markets, you have to understand, how do companies innovate, all of these wonderful topics. So, kind of pursued the business program there. And while I was at Purdue, I said, what are those little things flying around in the sky? Oh, those are Cessnas 152s. I have to do that too. So there was definitely some times I should have been studying for my exams, but I was up there flying around these little Cessna planes because again, right, I don't know. I love to experience, right, and learn and then apply that. And then kind of fast forwarding over time, I had dabbled in many flavors of engineering throughout my career. I've done civil engineering, I've done naval engineering, which is like shipboard engineering. I've done marine safety and inspecting cruise ships and oil tank. I mean, I've done all these different blends of technical jobs. And the more I would kind of study these types of processes and systems, I'm interacting with people, the more for me personally, I said, I need to acquire more skill sets. And so I went back to school again, and I ended up being accepted into an accelerated PhD program at the George Washington University in systems engineering. And for me, it just kind of put a nice big bow around all of my previous education, my kind of life experiences, kind of, first generation US, living abroad, all these different multifaceted experiences. I said, I want more formal training to help study systems because I naturally see the world as systems, whether we have healthcare system, we have an educational system, a criminal justice system, right? And so as I'm naturally just kind of processing and understanding systems at large, I'm starting to see things that kind of cut across systems and especially cut across critical systems. And for me, that started to look like things like critical infrastructure, right? So that's really how I started to shift into cybersecurity because now I see cybersecurity, or I should say the lack thereof of cybersecurity, protecting and securing those critical systems. Now that can have a real impact on human beings, right? So we can certainly imagine what would happen if an adversary attacks a system that now impacts our clean water systems, or there's an incident in a maritime port that impacts our ability to make sure we have goods on the shelf ready to go. So again, I began to really kind of understand that things are so interconnected and at the same time very vulnerable. So we have to continuously figure out how do we thrive, right, with the societal goals that we have. But at the same time, we have to make sure that we understand what those risks are, what those vulnerabilities are, what those threats are. And it's really kind of a continuous learning process. So again, it's maybe a little bit long-winded, but I kind of just fell into it because it's something that transcends virtually all of what we do. You can even add in democracy as a system in terms of elections, and that's one of the work that CISA is very involved in as well in terms of election security. So again, I mean, it literally transcends through all of these institutions that we need for our society to thrive.
Wow, I don't I don't mind that longer explanation. That was amazing. It feels like the theme right now of this conversation is kind of putting the human aspect back into the middle of everything and connecting that human aspect to systems. And I like how you tied in talking about how you view everything as systems because they really are, and how cybersecurity fits in securing those systems and being the solution to a problem. So you being able to imagine, okay, how can I utilize cybersecurity to find a solution to the vulnerabilities in the various systems that we all use every day and that connects us across various backgrounds and experiences. So that was a great breakdown. Thank you for that. And just kind of sticking with the present, since you kind of brought us to the present and your mindset and what you want to do. What are you most passionate about right now? You kind of alluded to it a little bit, but is there any other things that you're really passionate about or really excited about as you're working detail for CISA and just in general from a professional standpoint?
Yeah, it's always hard to nail down just one. But honestly, I mean, working at CISA is wonderful, and that's probably an understatement. It's beyond wonderful, and the culture is amazing. And I don't know. I guess for me, I just wake up every morning hungry, eager to tackle the day's problems. And I have kind of my primary portfolio where I'm looking. We actually just put out a cooperative agreement that's actually live on grants.gov right now. But one of the many things that we're doing is trying to identify a non-traditional technical training provider to kind of help us find solutions in the niche where maybe there's folks that have some cyber aptitude, but maybe they don't yet have a college degree. So, where do they fit kind of in this ecosystem and kind of problem solving for us? So, like I said, I mean, every day is exciting. There's no shortage of challenges. There's no shortage of just fascinating topics. And it's fast paced, but I love it. And so for me, I'm grounded each day thinking about the impact that we're making because it's impact in real people's lives, right? And that's always has been my motivation for as long as I can remember. And I just go back to just when I was a kid, just finding safe space in the library and just reading, and that aha moment of, oh my gosh, I never knew this about this particular topic. And so I find strength in being able to bring people together so that collectively we kind of have that aha moment, right? And again, going back into the being bold enough to imagine a solution that hasn't yet happened yet. So that's really what motivates me every day. And I'm just extremely grateful to find a home at CISA where I can kind of spread my wings and, they haven't gotten tired of me just yet. So, I feel it's just a great environment to work in. And like I said, I mean, I have many hats, Coast Guard hat, educator hat, CISA hat, but just to be able to kind of tie all those things together where it's complementary of one another, I couldn't ask for anything more. So, but yeah, but thank you for that question.
Yeah, that was a great pitch. So if anyone is interested in learning more, definitely go to www.cisa.gov. It'll also be included in that banner. Excellent pitch on why someone should want to look more, not only into the programs that you mentioned and that ecosystem and having college students learn and understand how they can be a part of it, but also just learning more about the opportunities, whether it's career opportunities or possible internship opportunities that may be available as well. Um, Wow. This has been an amazing conversation. I wish I could continue talking to you, but I definitely want to respect your time. It has been such a pleasure speaking with you, learning more about you, and you sharing your story with myself and with the audience that is watching us live. Um, for those who are watching who would like to follow your journey, is there anywhere that they can follow you or follow CISA to find out more about different opportunities?
Yes, definitely can follow CISA at large. CISA is on Twitter, LinkedIn, and Facebook. And that would be the best way to kind of stay up to date on any messaging. I'm also on LinkedIn under Kimberly McLear on LinkedIn. So if there's anyone in the audience that wants to reach out to me after this, I'd be more than happy to talk and entertain any follow-on questions.
Thank you so much again. Thank you for everyone for joining. Again, also don't forget to join us next Tuesday for our noon continuation of the series with BCA's own Daryl Kelly Jr. Again, Kim, thank you so much for joining us. I really appreciate it. And I hope everyone out there has a great rest of your week. Thank you all for joining us.
Thank you, Delisha. Thank you.
Thank you.